The quantum mistake. The gentle hum of quantum processors filled the underground laboratory as Dr. Sarah Chen made final adjustments to her experimental setup. 3 years of research, countless failed attempts, and her entire career had led to this moment. The quantum entanglement chamber before her, a masterpiece of theoretical physics made real, pulsed with an otherworldly blue glow. Final systems check, Sarah announced to the empty lab, her voice steady despite the excitement coursing through her veins. The holographic displays surrounding her workstation showed all systems nominal, each quantum field perfectly aligned. She brushed a strand of dark hair from her face, double-checking the calculations one last time. The experiment was simple in theory: create a stable quantum bridge between 2 points in space-time. Previous attempts had managed microsecond connections, but Sarah's breakthrough in harmonic field theory suggested something more was possible, much more. Initiating quantum field synchronization in 3, 2, 1. Her finger pressed the activation key, and the chamber's hum deepened to a resonant thrum that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. The first sign that something was different came when the air began to shimmer, not just within the chamber, but throughout the entire lab. Sarah's instruments went haywire, readings spiking far beyond theoretical limits. "This isn't right," she muttered, fingers flying across the controls. "The field containment should be..." A flash of brilliant white light filled the lab, forcing Sarah to shield her eyes. When she could see again, her jaw dropped. Where the quantum chamber had been, a swirling vortex of iridescent energy now hung in the air, its surface rippling like liquid starlight. But that wasn't what made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. Standing before the portal was a being unlike anything she had ever seen or imagined. Tall and ethereally beautiful, its form seemed to be composed of living crystal, translucent surfaces catching and refracting light in impossible ways. Great wings of crystalline energy extended from its back, and its eyes glowed with an inner light that spoke of vast intelligence. "This is unexpected," the being spoke, its voice a melodious harmony that seemed to resonate directly in Sarah's mind. "Your species should not have this capability for at least another century." Sarah stood frozen, her scientific mind warring with the impossible reality before her. What are you?" The crystalline being turned to face her fully, its movement graceful and fluid despite its seemingly rigid structure. "I am Lumina, chief negotiator of the Astral Concordat, and you, human, have just interrupted a rather delicate peace conference between quantum realms." Before Sarah could process this information, alarms began blaring throughout the lab. The portal behind Lumina started to fluctuate wildly, its edges becoming unstable. No. Sarah rushed to her controls. "The quantum field is collapsing." "This is most unfortunate," Lumina observed, surprisingly calm. "The dimensional breach is becoming unstable. Your primitive containment systems cannot handle the strain." "I can fix this," Sarah insisted, desperately trying to stabilize the field. "I just need tow." The portal suddenly pulsed, sending out a shockwave that knocked both Sarah and Lumina off their feet. When they scrambled up, the portal had changed, its swirling surface now a deep, ominous purple. "We must leave immediately," Lumina announced, its crystalline form glowing more intensely. This breach could collapse at any moment, taking half your facility with it. Sarah knew she should run, but her life's work was about to be destroyed. "Just let me save the data." "There is no time." Lumina's wing extended, wrapping around Sarah's waist. The crystalline being pulled her close, its touch sending tingles of energy through her body. "Hold tight." Before Sarah could protest, Lumina launched them both toward the portal. They passed through just as a massive explosion rocked the lab behind them. The sensation of quantum tunneling was unlike anything Sarah had experienced, like being everywhere and nowhere at once. Her consciousness stretched across infinite possibilities. They emerged in what appeared to be a vast chamber with walls of shifting energy patterns. Lumina released Sarah, who stumbled slightly before finding her footing on the strangely solid floor. "Where are we?" she asked, trying to take in the impossible architecture around them. "The quantum nexus," Lumina replied, its crystalline features arranged in what Sarah interpreted as concern. A space between spaces where the negotiations were to take place. But something is wrong. The being's wings flared suddenly. "The portal network is destabilizing. Your experiment has created a cascade effect throughout the quantum substrate." Sarah watched in horror as the shifting patterns around them began to fracture. "Can we fix it?" "Not from here." Lumina's voice held a note of urgency now. "We must reach the primary nexus control chamber. Follow me, and whatever you do, don't touch anything." As they raced through corridors of pure energy, Sarah couldn't help but notice the beauty of Lumina's crystalline form in motion. Each movement sent rainbows of light dancing across the walls, and those wings, they seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible. "I can sense your fascination, human," Lumina commented as they ran. "I must admit, your species continues to surprise us. No other race has accidentally breached the quantum barrier quite so spectacularly." "I'm Sarah," she managed between breaths. "And I didn't mean to crash your peace conference." "Nevertheless you have," Lumina replied. "And now both the Astral Concordat and the Void Collective will be wondering why a human suddenly appeared in the middle of their most crucial negotiations in millennia." They reached what appeared to be a central chamber, filled with floating crystals that pulsed with complex patterns of light. Lumina moved to what seemed to be a control interface, its hands dancing through the air as patterns shifted and changed. "This is bad," the crystalline being announced. "Your experiment has created a quantum entanglement loop between your world and the Nexus. We're locked out of the main controls." "Let me help." Sarah stepped forward, her physicist's mind already analyzing the patterns. "If this is a quantum system, maybe my research cooled." No, Lumina's warning came too late. The moment Sarah's hand touched one of the floating crystals, everything changed. The chamber filled with blinding light, and Sarah felt herself being pulled apart at the quantum level. The last thing she heard before consciousness fled was Lumina's voice. "Oh dear, this is going to cause quite the diplomatic incident." When Sarah awoke, she found herself lying on grass under an alien sky of swirling purples and greens. Lumina sat nearby, its crystalline form dimmed to a soft glow. "What happened?" Sarah groaned, sitting up slowly. "Congratulations." Lumina's voice held a mix of amusement and concern. "You've just accidentally kidnapped an astral diplomat and triggered a quantum lockdown of the entire negotiation network. I believe your people would call this starting off on the wrong foot." Sarah stared at the alien being, reality finally sinking in. "I've really messed up, haven't I?" "Indeed," Lumina agreed, but there was a gentleness to its tone. "Though I must admit, I find your species' capacity for chaos rather intriguing." As they sat under that alien sky, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could imagine. She had wanted to make history with her quantum experiment. She just hadn't expected to potentially start an interstellar incident in the process. The sound of distant engines drew their attention skyward. "We should move," Lumina suggested, rising gracefully. "That will be the Void Collective's recovery team. They tend to shoot first and ask questions never." Sarah scrambled to her feet, trying not to stare at how Lumina's crystalline form caught the light of the alien suns. "Where can we go?" "There's a secondary nexus point 2 kilometers from here." Lumina's wings flexed, sending cascades of light across the landscape. "If we can reach it, we might be able to establish a secure connection and explain this situation." As they began their journey across the alien terrain, Sarah couldn't help but wonder how her life had changed so dramatically in the span of a few hours. She had wanted to prove her theories about quantum mechanics. Instead, she had accidentally kidnapped the most beautiful being she had ever seen and potentially started an interstellar diplomatic crisis. Just another day in the life of a quantum physicist, she thought wryly. following the graceful form of her crystalline companion into whatever adventure awaited them. Worlds collide. Sarah's legs burned as she followed Lumina through the alien landscape, her mind still struggling to process everything that had happened. The crystalline being moved with impossible grace across the terrain, its wings occasionally catching the light of the twin suns overhead and sending prismatic patterns dancing across the purple-hued vegetation. "Wait," Sarah called out, pausing to catch her breath. "I need a moment." She leaned against what appeared to be a tree, though its bark seemed to pulse with bioluminescent patterns. Lumina turned, its crystalline features arranging themselves into what Sarah was beginning to recognize as concern. "We cannot afford to rest long. The Void Collective's sensors will have already tracked our quantum signatures." "Then maybe you could explain what's really going on here." Sarah straightened, fixing the alien being with a determined look. "Who exactly are you negotiating with, and why is everyone so eager to shoot us?" Lumina's form dimmed slightly, a gesture Sarah had learned indicated deep thought. "Your experiment created a breach at precisely the wrong moment. The Astral Concordat and Void Collective have been locked in a cold war for millennia, fighting over control of the quantum substrate that connects all realities." The quantum substrate. Sarah's scientific curiosity piqued. "You mean there's actually a unified field connecting different dimensions?" "Indeed." Lumina's voice carried a note of appreciation for her quick understanding. "And your experiment proved that humans have begun to access it far earlier than anyone anticipated. This complicates things." A distant explosion interrupted their conversation, causing both of them to instinctively duck. "That would be the Void Collective's advanced scouts," Lumina observed, wings flaring protectively. "We must reach the secondary nexus point before they—" The air suddenly crackled with energy, and a sleek black ship materialized above them. Its surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an unsettling void in the sky. "Run." Lumina grabbed Sarah's hand, the contact sending tingles of energy through her entire body. They sprinted through the alien forest as energy bolts began raining down around them. "Why aren't we fighting back?" Sarah gasped as they dove behind a cluster of crystal formations. "Don't you have some kind of defensive capabilities?" "I am a negotiator," Luna replied, its crystalline form pulsing with what might have been embarrassment. "My abilities are focused on communication and diplomacy, not combat." "Great," Sarah muttered, flinching as another explosion rocked their hiding spot. "So I managed to kidnap the one alien without weapons." "Your species' preoccupation with violence is concerning," Lumina observed, but there was a hint of amusement in its harmonious voice. "However, I do have other abilities that might prove useful." The crystalline being raised its hands, and the air around them began to shimmer. Suddenly, multiple copies of them appeared, running in different directions. The Void Collective ship's weapons tracked the duplicates, giving them a chance to slip away unnoticed. "Quantum multiplication," Sarah breathed in amazement. "You created superposed versions of us." "A simple negotiation tactic," Luna replied modestly. "Sometimes the best way to reach an agreement is to explore multiple possibilities simultaneously." They continued moving through the forest, but Sarah noticed Lumina's glow had dimmed considerably. "Are you all right? That trick seemed to take a lot out of you." "I will recover," Lumina assured her, though its movements had become less fluid. "But we must reach the nexus point soon. I cannot maintain this level of quantum manipulation indefinitely." As they traveled, Sarah found herself increasingly fascinated by her alien companion. Despite its otherworldly appearance, there was something deeply compelling about Lumina's combination of vast intelligence and almost childlike curiosity about humans. "Your thought patterns are quite unique," Lumina commented suddenly. "Most species we encounter think in linear terms, but your mind seems to jump between possibilities in a way that's almost quantum." "Is that a compliment or a criticism?" Sarah asked, helping steady the crystalline being as it stumbled slightly. "An observation," Luminous features shifted in what might have been a smile, and perhaps an explanation for why you were able to breach the quantum barrier. Your species thinks differently than the others we've encountered. Their conversation was interrupted by a new sound, the distinctive whine of Earth military aircraft. Sarah's heart sank as she recognized the sound. Oh no, they must have detected the quantum disturbance from my lab. Your military forces are now involved. Luna's crystalline structure briefly flashed with anxiety. This situation becomes more complex by the moment. We need to hide. Sarah looked around desperately. Both our people will be looking for us now. Lumina's wings suddenly wrapped around Sarah, pulling her close. The sensation was extraordinary, like being embraced by living starlight. I have another solution, the being whispered, its voice resonating through Sarah's entire body. But it requires trust. Do you trust me, Sarah Chen? Sarah found herself staring into those impossibly deep crystalline eyes, her heart racing from more than just their flight. Yes, she whispered back. I trust you. Lumina's form began to glow more intensely, and Sarah felt a strange sensation spreading through her body. I'm going to attempt a quantum phase shift, the being explained. It will take us slightly out of sync with both realities, but I warn you, the experience can be intense for organic beings. Before Sarah could respond, the world around them began to shift. Colors inverted, sound became visible, and she could suddenly perceive quantum probability waves flowing through everything. It was beautiful, terrifying, and overwhelming all at once. But what truly caught her attention was Lumina's true form in this quantum state. The crystalline being was even more magnificent, its consciousness extending through multiple dimensions, wings spanning probability spaces Sarah's mind could barely comprehend. You're beautiful, she breathed, the words escaping before she could stop them. Lumina's response was a pulse of pure emotion that Sarah felt rather than heard, surprise, pleasure, and something deeper that defied translation into human terms. As they stood between realities, Sarah became aware of a fundamental truth. Her accident hadn't just created a diplomatic crisis, it had brought together two beings who might never have met otherwise. And despite the chaos they had unleashed, despite the dangers they faced, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. The quantum phase shift couldn't last long. Soon they would have to face both their peoples, explain their actions, and somehow prevent an interstellar war. But for this brief moment, suspended between worlds, Sarah felt like she finally understood what her quantum research had been missing all along, the human element in the cosmic equation. As their realities began to realign, Sarah caught one last glimpse of Lumina's true form and made a silent promise. Whatever came next, she would find a way to protect this extraordinary being who had literally fallen into her life. Even if it meant revealing everything she knew about quantum physics to the world, even if it meant facing down two hostile civilizations, she would find a way. Because some accidents, she was beginning to realize, might just be destiny in disguise. The hunt begins. The quantum phase shift ended with a sensation like reality snapping back into focus. Sarah stumbled, her mind reeling from the experience, but Lumina's crystalline wings steadied her. They had materialized in what appeared to be an abandoned research facility, its walls covered in a strange iridescent moss that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Where are we? Sarah asked, trying to orient herself in the dimly lit space. An old astral concordat observation post, Lumina replied, its glow dimmed to barely a flicker. The quantum manipulation had clearly taken its toll. It was abandoned centuries ago when your species began developing radio astronomy. We needed to maintain our distance to prevent premature contact. Well, that plan certainly worked out, Sarah muttered, helping Lumina settle against a wall. The crystalline being's usually pristine surface had developed tiny fractures, barely visible but concerning. You're hurt. Merely depleted, Lumina assured her, though its voice lacked its usual harmonic resonance. The quantum phase shift required more energy than anticipated. Your reality has. unusual properties that resist manipulation. A distant rumble shook the facility, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Sarah moved to a grimy window, careful to stay hidden as she peered out. The sky had turned an ominous shade of purple, torn by occasional flashes of quantum lightning. "They're searching probability spaces," Lumina explained, its voice tight with concern. "Both the Void Collective and the Astral Concordat will be deploying quantum trackers. They can follow the ripples of our phase shift through local space-time." Like throwing a stone in a pond, Sarah mused, her physicist's mind already analyzing the implications. The ripples spread out through the quantum substrate, revealing our path. An apt analogy, luminous features shifted in what Sarah now recognized as approval. "Your understanding of quantum mechanics is surprisingly sophisticated for your species' current development level." "Thanks, I think," Sarah smiled despite their situation. "Though I'm pretty sure accidentally kidnapping an alien diplomat wasn't covered in my PhD program." Their moment of levity was interrupted by a new sound, the distinctive whine of quantum drives powering up. Through the window, Sarah spotted 3 ships materializing in the sky. Unlike the aggressive black vessels of the Void Collective, these were elegant constructions of crystal and light, similar to Lumina's own form. "The Astral Concordat," Lumina confirmed, struggling to rise. "They are not technically hostile, but they will wish to contain this situation permanently." "What do you mean, permanently?" Sarah helped steady the crystalline being, trying to ignore how right it felt to be this close. "They would likely attempt to erase all quantum knowledge from Earth's collective consciousness," Lumina explained. "A reset to prevent further interference with the negotiations. The process would be painless, but it would erase years of scientific progress," Sarah finished, her voice hardening. "And probably my memories of you too." "Yes," Lumina's response was barely a whisper, but the pain in its harmonic voice spoke volumes. Before either could say more, the facility's ancient systems suddenly hummed to life. Holographic displays flickered into existence around them, showing multiple ships converging on their location: Void Collective, Astral Concordat, and now Earth military forces too. "This is very not good," Sarah muttered, watching the tactical displays with growing concern. "We've got 3 different armed forces about to collide, and somehow I don't think they're coming for a friendly chat." Lumina's wings rustled anxiously, sending cascades of weak light across the room. "The situation is worse than you realize. The quantum disturbance from your experiment has created a cascade effect through the substrate. If the 3 forces engage in combat here, what happens?" The quantum substrate could shatter. Lumina's voice was grim. Reality itself would begin to fragment. Your world and many others would be torn apart at the quantum level. Sarah paced the room, her mind racing. "There has to be a solution. You're a negotiator. Can't you just explain what's happening?" "Under normal circumstances, yes. But the Void Collective believes I have been kidnapped by a primitive species attempting to gain quantum supremacy. The Astral Concordat assumes I am compromised or conspiring with humanity. And your military probably thinks I'm a traitor who helped aliens infiltrate Earth," Sarah finished. "Perfect." She stopped pacing suddenly, an idea forming. "Wait, you said my experiment created a quantum disturbance. What if we could recreate it, but this time controlled?" Lumina's crystalline structure brightened slightly with interest. "What are you suggesting?" "Your people understand quantum mechanics far better than we do," Sarah explained, growing excited despite their dire situation. "But humans think differently, you said it yourself. What if we combined our knowledge, created something new?" A human-astral quantum integration. Lumina's form shifted, revealing new facets that caught the dim light. "It's never been attempted. The risks would be..." Another explosion rocked the facility, closer this time. Sarah steadied herself against a console, then turned to face Lumina directly. "The risks of doing nothing seem pretty high too. I need you to trust me. like I trusted you with the phase shift. Lumina studied her for a long moment, its crystalline eyes seeming to peer directly into her soul. Finally, it extended a hand, its surface glowing with renewed energy. Very well, Sarah Chen. Let us attempt the impossible. As Sarah took Lumina's hand, she felt that familiar tingle of energy, but this time it was different, more focused, more intimate somehow. Their minds connected at the quantum level, human intuition merging with astral knowledge in ways that defied conventional physics. Oh, Luna breathed, its voice filled with wonder. Your mind is extraordinary. Sarah could barely form words, overwhelmed by the sensation of sharing consciousness with a crystalline being. She could see quantum mechanics as Lumina understood it, not just mathematics and theories, but a living, breathing fabric of reality itself. Together, they began to work, their combined consciousness reaching out through the quantum substrate. Sarah's unconventional human approach merged with Lumina's refined astral techniques, creating something entirely new. The abandoned facility's systems responded to their commands, ancient technology awakening under their shared will. Outside, the three opposing forces drew closer, weapons charged and tensions rising. But inside, human and astral worked as one, racing against time to prevent a catastrophe that could tear reality apart. And if, in those moments of shared consciousness, other feelings began to emerge, feelings that transcended species and physical forms, well, that was just another quantum possibility they'd have to deal with later. Assuming, of course, they survived the next few hours. Rising storm. The quantum integration between Sarah and Lumina had transformed the abandoned facility into something entirely new. Holographic displays flickered with hybrid human-astral code, while crystalline growths spread across the walls, pulsing with energy that defied conventional physics. The quantum harmonization is holding, Sarah announced, her voice carrying an ethereal echo from their lingering mental connection. But we've got company incoming, lots of company. Through their shared consciousness, they could sense the approaching forces like waves of pressure in the quantum substrate. The Void Collective's ships moved like sharks through probability space, while the Astral Concordat's crystalline vessels sang with complex harmonics. Earth's military forces, though technologically inferior, radiated a determined intensity that both Sarah and Lumina found remarkable. Your species lacks quantum technology, Lumina observed, its crystalline form now intertwined with the facility's systems, yet they approach without fear, ready to challenge beings far beyond their current understanding. That's humanity for you, Sarah replied, adjusting their quantum shields. We're really good at punching above our weight class. A massive explosion rocked the facility as the first shots were fired in the three-way confrontation above. Through their shared consciousness, Sarah and Lumina felt the quantum substrate shudder. We're running out of time. Lumina's voice carried an urgent harmony. The substrate is becoming unstable, if we don't act soon. Working on it, Sarah interrupted, her hands dancing through the holographic interfaces. The quantum harmonizer is almost ready. We just need tow. The ceiling suddenly exploded inward as a Void Collective boarding party materialized in the room. Their forms were like living shadows, absorbing light and radiating cold purpose. At the same time, crystalline warriors of the Astral Concordat phased through the walls, their weapons charged with quantum energy. Surrender the human terrorist, the Void Collective commander demanded, its voice like static in the quantum field. She has corrupted an astral negotiator and threatens the balance of power. Stand down, Lumina, one of the astral warriors called out. You have been compromised by primitive influences. Allow us to correct this aberration. Sarah felt Lumina's surge of protective anger through their connection. The crystalline being's wings flared with power, creating a barrier between them and both sets of warriors. You all misunderstand. Lumina's voice resonated with authority. This human has not corrupted me. She has shown me, shown all of us, something revolutionary. Before anyone could respond, new voices joined the confrontation as Earth's special forces propelled in through the broken ceiling, their weapons trained on all parties. Dr. Chen, a familiar voice called out, "Step away from the alien entities. We're here to rescue you." Sarah recognized Colonel Hayes, her former military liaison. "This isn't what you think, Colonel. We're trying to prevent a disaster that could tear reality apart." "A disaster you caused," the Void Commander hissed. "Human quantum experiments must be stopped before." The facility shook violently, and through their connection, Sarah and Lumina felt something fundamental crack in the quantum substrate. The holographic displays filled with warning signals. "It's starting," Lumina announced, its voice heavy with dread. "The quantum cascade has begun." Through their shared consciousness, Sarah and Lumina watched in horror as reality began to fragment. Small tears appeared in space-time, leaking impossible colors and energies from other dimensions. The quantum substrate, stressed by too many forces pulling in too many directions, was beginning to shatter. "Show them," Sarah urged through their mental link. "Show them what we've learned." Lumina hesitated for just a moment, then extended their shared consciousness to include everyone in the room. Humans, Void Collective, and Astral Warriors all gasped as their minds were briefly connected, experiencing the full scope of what Sarah and Lumina had discovered together. They saw how human creativity and astral precision could work in harmony. They felt the quantum substrate not as a battlefield to be conquered, but as a living framework that connected all sentient beings. Most importantly, they experienced the possibility of something greater than the sum of their parts. "This is what we can achieve together," Sarah announced, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance of Lumina's influence. "But only if we stop fighting long enough to listen to each other." The facility shook again as another quantum shockwave hit. The tears in reality were growing larger, threatening to merge into catastrophic breaches. "The harmonizer," Lumina reminded Sarah through their link. "It's our only chance." Sarah nodded, turning to address the assembled forces. "We've developed a way to stabilize the quantum substrate, but it will take all of us working together. Each of our species understands a different aspect of quantum reality. Apart, we're just making things worse. Together we might survive," the Void Commander finished, its shadowy form shifting thoughtfully. "The human speaks truth," one of the Astral Warriors admitted. "I sense it through the quantum link. Their understanding is unique." Colonel Hayes lowered his weapon slightly. "Dr. Chen, are you sure about this? Can we trust them?" Sarah felt Lumina's presence in her mind, supportive and strong. "Colonel, right now we don't have a choice. But more than that, yes, I trust them. At least I trust that none of us wants to see reality tear itself apart." Another shockwave hit, stronger than before. Equipment sparked and crystalline growths shattered as the quantum substrate buckled under the strain. "We must decide now," Lumina announced, its voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience. "Work together or watch everything we know unravel at the quantum level." Sarah held her breath as the leaders of three very different species considered their options. Through the lingering quantum connection, she could sense their thoughts, fear, distrust, but also a growing recognition that they faced something bigger than their individual conflicts. Finally, the Void Commander stepped forward. "What do you need us to do?" Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she turned back to the quantum harmonizer controls. "First, we're going to need to synchronize our quantum frequencies. Void Collective, your ability to manipulate dark energy will be crucial. Astral Warriors will need your crystalline technology to amplify the harmonics. And humans, we'll do what we do best," Colonel Hayes finished, a hint of pride in his voice. "Improvise." As the unlikely allies began to work together, Sarah felt Lumina's presence in her mind grow warmer with approval and something else, something deeper that made her heart race despite the crisis around them. "Ready?" she asked through their connection. "With you." Lumina's response carried depths of meaning that transcended ordinary language. "Always." Together, they began the delicate process of saving reality itself, even as the quantum substrate continued to crack around them. The fate of multiple worlds now rested on whether three species could overcome centuries of distrust and work together. And at the heart of it all, a human quantum physicist and an astral negotiator remained connected in ways that defied the very physics they were trying to save. Breaking point. The quantum harmonizer hummed with power as three species worked together in desperate synchronization. Sarah and Lumina remained at the center, their merged consciousness directing the complex operation while reality itself threatened to unravel around them. Dark energy injection at 70%, the Void Commander reported, its shadowy form rippling with strain. We cannot maintain this level much longer. Crystalline resonance networks are approaching critical stress points, added an astral warrior, their normally pristine form showing fractures from the effort. Through their shared consciousness, Sarah felt Lumina's growing concern. The quantum substrate was stabilizing, but too slowly. At this rate, the breach would grow beyond their ability to contain it before they could seal it completely. "We need more power," Sarah announced, her mind racing through calculations. The harmonic convergence isn't strong enough to force a complete reality realignment. Colonel Hayes stepped forward, his face grim. "What about the nuclear generator in the facility's basement? It's old, but it still has fuel." Sarah's eyes widened as she ran the numbers through their hybrid human-astral understanding of quantum mechanics. Yes, that could work. We could use the nuclear reaction to amplify the quantum harmonics, create a resonance cascade that would. That would either seal the breach or tear this entire region out of space-time. Lumina finished, its crystalline form pulsing with anxiety. The risks are enormous. Another reality shockwave hit, stronger than any before. Equipment shattered, and several of the Void Collective warriors were nearly pulled into a forming breach before their companions could grab them. "We're out of options," Sarah insisted. "Colonel, can you get that generator online?" Hayes nodded sharply. "Give me 5 minutes." He turned to his team. "Jenkins, Rodriguez with me. The rest of you maintain position." As the humans hurried out, Sarah felt a sudden spike of alarm through her connection with Lumina. The crystalline being's form brightened intensely as it processed new information through the quantum substrate. "Sarah," Lumina's harmonic voice was tight with concern. "There's something I must tell you. The quantum harmonics, they'll require a focal point, a consciousness to guide the resonance cascade." "Okay," Sarah replied, distracted by adjusting their containment fields. "So we'll guide it together, like we've been doing." "No." Lumina's response carried such weight that Sarah turned to face the being fully. The focal point must be singular. One consciousness, serving as an anchor point between realities, and it must be pure quantum. The implication hit Sarah like a physical blow. "You mean, you're planning to?" "It must be me," Lumina confirmed softly. "My crystalline form can withstand the quantum pressures. A human consciousness would be torn apart." "No." Sarah's denial echoed both verbally and through their mental link. "There has to be another way. We can modify the harmonics, try a different approach." "There isn't time." Lumina's wing gently brushed Sarah's cheek, sending tingles of energy through her skin. "You know this. I can feel your understanding through our connection, even as you fight against it." Tears formed in Sarah's eyes as she realized Lumina was right. The physics was undeniable. They needed a quantum-native consciousness to serve as a focal point, and Lumina was the only one who could survive the initial resonance, even if it meant being trapped forever in the quantum substrate, holding reality together. "I can't lose you," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "Not when I've just found you." Through their connection, Lumina shared a wave of emotions that transcended human understanding: love, sacrifice, hope, and something deeper that had no name in any language. "You'll never lose me," Lumina assured her. "I will become one with the quantum substrate itself. In a way, I'll be everywhere, including here." The being's crystalline hand rested over Sarah's heart. The facility shook violently as Colonel Hayes' voice came over the radio. "Generator online in 3 minutes." The Void Commander approached, its shadowy form roiling with barely contained energy. "The breach is expanding exponentially. Whatever you're planning, it must be done soon." Sarah looked around the room at the assembled forces, humans, Void Collective, and Astral Concordat, all working together in a way that would have seemed impossible just hours ago. Through her tears, she managed a small smile. "Look what we've accomplished already," she said to Lumina. "Maybe this isn't an ending. Maybe it's a beginning." Lumina's form brightened with approval and pride. "You humans never cease to amaze me. Even in darkness, you find hope." "Generator online." Hayes' voice crackled through the speakers. Sarah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Everyone to your positions. Void Collective, prepare to channel the dark energy through the primary conduits. Astral Warriors, establish the crystalline resonance network. Humans, stand ready to manage the nuclear reaction." As everyone moved to comply, Sarah turned to Lumina one last time. Through their connection, she poured every emotion, every memory, every moment they had shared. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me that reality is more beautiful and strange than I ever imagined." "And thank you," Lumina replied, its harmonic voice full of emotion, "for teaching me that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from accidents." They began the sequence. The nuclear generator's power fed into the quantum harmonizer, amplified by Void Collective dark energy and channeled through astral crystalline matrices. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath as Lumina's consciousness expanded, preparing to merge with the quantum substrate. Just before the final sequence, Lumina shared one last thought through their connection. "Search for me in the spaces between moments, Sarah Chen. I will be there, watching over all realities, and especially over you." The quantum harmonizer reached full power. Lumina's form began to dissolve into pure energy, spreading through the quantum substrate like starlight through crystal. Sarah felt their mental connection stretch, thin, but never quite break as the being she had come to love sacrificed itself to save all of reality. The breach began to seal, reality knitting itself back together as Lumina's consciousness guided the process from within the quantum substrate itself. And as the light faded and the dust settled, Sarah could have sworn she felt a familiar tingling sensation, like crystalline wings brushing against her soul. The crisis was over, but for Sarah Chen, this was just the beginning of a much bigger story. 3 months after the quantum crisis, Sarah Chen stood before a packed auditorium at the United Nations. Representatives from Earth's governments sat alongside delegates from both the Void Collective and the Astral Concordat, the first official tri-species conference in human history. "The quantum substrate isn't just a framework of reality," Sarah explained, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "It's a living connection between all conscious beings. We proved that when we work together to prevent its collapse." As she spoke, she felt that familiar tingling sensation, like crystalline wings brushing against her consciousness. Since Lumina's sacrifice, Sarah had discovered she retained a faint connection to the quantum substrate. It wasn't the same as their shared consciousness had been, but it was enough to remind her that her friend, her love, was still out there, woven into the fabric of reality itself. The holographic displays behind her showed the new quantum integration technologies being developed through cooperation between the 3 species. Void Collective Shadow Tech merged with astral crystalline matrices, enhanced by human innovation and creativity. "We stand at a turning point," Sarah continued. 3 months ago, we faced the end of everything. Instead, we found a beginning. The quantum breach didn't just threaten our realities, it showed us what we could achieve together." In the front row, Colonel Hayes nodded approvingly. After the crisis, he had become one of the strongest advocates for interspecies cooperation, helping to bridge the gap between Earth's military forces and their new allies. The Void Commander, now officially the ambassador of a collective, shifted its shadowy form, in what Sarah had learned was a gesture of agreement. The human speaks truth. Our ancient conflicts seem insignificant compared to what we have learned from each other. Indeed, the astral representative added, their crystalline form catching the light. Luminous sacrifice showed us that there are things worth more than power or control. The quantum substrate connects us all. We are stronger together than apart. Sarah felt another brush of quantum energy against her consciousness, stronger this time. Over the past months, she had learned to interpret these touches, these moments when the barrier between normal space-time and the quantum substrate grew thin. Lumina was watching, aware, present in ways that transcended ordinary existence. But our work is just beginning, Sarah announced, bringing up new displays. The quantum harmonics we developed have applications far beyond crisis management. Medical breakthroughs, clean energy, space exploration, the possibilities are endless. All we have to do is maintain the cooperation and trust we found in our darkest moment. As if on cue, the quantum substrate rippled. The assembled delegates gasped as patterns of light danced through the air. Luminous signature energy, now woven into the very fabric of space-time, putting on a display that transcended the boundaries between species. A sign of approval, the astral representative announced, their voice filled with wonder. Lumina's consciousness continues to guide and protect the quantum substrate. Sarah smiled, blinking back tears. Not just guiding and protecting, she corrected gently. Teaching. Showing us that the universe is far more mysterious and beautiful than any single species could understand alone. The presentation concluded with the signing of the Quantum Cooperation Treaty. As representatives from all three species came together to formalize their new alliance, Sarah felt the quantum energy surge around them. For just a moment, she caught a glimpse of reality as Lumina now saw it: infinite possibilities, countless connections, all life and consciousness intertwined in ways that defied ordinary perception. Later, alone in her lab, Sarah sat beside her rebuilt quantum chamber. The technology had evolved significantly since that fateful day when she accidentally breached the quantum barrier. Now it incorporated elements from all three species, creating something entirely new. "I miss you," she whispered to the quiet room. "Even though I know you're still here, still watching, I miss seeing you, talking to you." The air shimmered, and Sarah felt that familiar presence wrap around her like crystalline wings. Through their faint but enduring connection, she received not words but pure emotions: pride, love, and a sense of continued adventure. "Yeah," she smiled, running her hands over the quantum harmonizer controls. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" The quantum substrate pulsed in response, and Sarah knew that somewhere, somehow, Lumina was smiling too. Their accident had changed everything, not just the relationship between species, but the very way they understood reality itself. As she initiated a new series of quantum experiments, now sanctioned and supported by all three species, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. Her mistake, her kidnapping of an astral negotiator, had led to the greatest breakthrough in human history. More than that, it had shown that love could transcend not just species, but reality itself. The quantum harmonizer hummed to life, its hybrid technology creating new patterns in the substrate, and in the spaces between moments, in the quantum realm that connected all things, the consciousness that had once been Lumina continued its eternal dance through reality, watching over the species it had helped bring together, and especially watching over the human who had changed everything with one beautiful mistake. In the end, Sarah realized, some accidents really were destiny in disguise, and some loves really could reshape reality itself. The end,